KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
America has a problem.
For me, pray your love is deep for me. I'ma make you go weak for me, make you wait a whole week for me.
Happy Wednesday. You are rocking with Jill Munroe on RSVP with Jill Munroe, right here live on KBLA Talk 1580. I hope you are relaxed, strapped in. As always, we have a great deal to discuss tonight. I hope you're ready. Go get your snacks, go get your libations, because we are about to get into some things. You know, we talked a bit last night about one of our topics that we're going to get to later, but I just want to kind of preface it with, you never want to have to say, yeah, I kind of told you so. You never want to have to say, wow, I had to question a sister, and it's hard enough because people don't always believe in us. They don't take our word for granted. They, tend to not value us as much. And so we saw a response. We saw what ended up being the outcome of said response. And of course, we're going to get into it with all the hot topics, because that is what we do on RSVP. We bring you all the headlines, all the trending topics in entertainment, sports, culture, and lifestyle. And we're going to touch on all four tonight, because that's what we do, VIPs. So let me get you ready for the night. Let me set the agenda for you. We're going to talk about Carlee and the press conference that took place today, what's sort of going on with her, where we're at. We're going to get into Carlee Russell's story, according to the police in Alabama. We're also going to discuss John Amos. We have an update for him and the story that we've been following regarding the elder abuse accusations and the infighting within his family. We're going to discuss why Egyptian authorities are suing Travis Scott. This one's pretty interesting. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about Shannon Sharpe and where we think his next move is coming. We have an interesting interview tidbit with Issa Rae, and it involved Issa and some other actresses, and they were kind of questioning her about some things in reference to her, sort of trending not a trending topic thing, but, who knows you best, get to know you sort of segment. We're going to get into that. And, of course, later in the 11th hour, after hours, VIP, Velvet Rope, don't talk about it, be about it. We have Trent the artist here, so we're going to get into our Tubi reviews. We got some suggestions last week. We have checked some of those out, so we're going to talk about those. But in the meantime, we have a couple of conversation starters. Now, we know that the SAG after strike is going on, and Monique has decided to weigh in with her comments about the strike. Now, we know Monique has had her struggles with the Hollywood machine. She's come up against some titans, and she even sued Netflix. So now Monique is speaking out about the strike. She says on her Instagram, folks keep asking me how I feel about the strike. As you can see from above, and she showed a bunch of varied clips of her throughout the past few years discussing why she got labeled difficult, why she was told no, things of that nature. In this clip that she put this caption on, she said, I've been verbally striking for years. But some of my brothers and sisters, as the video shows, which includes Steve Harvey, who was included in this particular compilation of interviews and videos, have been striking me down for years. But yes, I support the WGAs and the SAG-AFTRA. That's why Countess Vaughn and I filed a lawsuit to get our money from the Parkers. I love us for real. So Monique is saying that the same things that she was fighting for and talking about in her situation with Netflix are being applied to what is happening with the SAG-AFTRA lawsuit. She said inequality is devastating and it's extreme, and that basically she did nothing wrong, but there was no one strong enough or confident enough to defend her in real time. That's what she said. And basically she's coming for her money from residuals from the Parkers. You know, it's interesting because I agree and disagree with Monique. I think that she did have some points. I think that we are kind of bending and reshaping history at this point in time, maybe to fit the narrative. I'm not mad that she's getting her money. I never was mad that she stood up for herself. I may have questioned some of the things that she wanted the general public to do as a reaction in support of her. I may have questioned some of her methods, but I didn't feel she was wrong in standing up for herself. However, I don't know if the two are necessarily equal. I mean, standing up for yourself is standing up for yourself, but, you know, I don't know. I love Monique for real, so I'm always happy that we see Black women doing well, especially our legends, but I don't know if I make the comparison. Really quick, I want to tell you some things that we spotted, conversation starters that we spotted around that we may get into at another time, but just to share with you. I don't know if you spotted Kendrick Lamar doing a jailhouse workout on Instagram. It was a little calisthenics, and he was doing it to Confunction, I believe. You know, deep cut. You got to know your music to recognize what he was doing. He was out in the yard. It was basic push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. Maybe Kendrick's got something coming for us, and he's getting ready, but it was out there. Go check out his Instagram if you want to look. There also was another spotting. Actress Megan Good and her new boo, Jonathan Majors, were at Disneyland. They were spotted, booed up, little kiss, little public displays of affection. So that relationship seems to be going strong. And, you know, we wish Megan and Jonathan well, and we're waiting to see the outcome of that. But that's what's happening around. So when we come forward, we're going to introduce you to our guest of the evening, Dr. Ayanna Davis. She is an LA Unified principal. She is a board member with the Compton Unified School District, and we're going to talk to her about some of the challenges that are facing Black women in education today. We also, as I mentioned, have Trent the Artist with us, our contributor every Wednesday. So, you know, we're going to get into some trending headlines and topics with him and everything that I've listed, all that and more. You are listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
What's up, LA? The Reparationist community got something real special going down in historic Leimert Park. August 12th, 2023. This event is sponsored by Reparations United and Black Pact, fighting for justice and empowering our community. Together, we can make moves. We have an insane lineup for y'all. The sultry Rotimi, the king of LA, The Game, smooth Eric Benet, and none other than the powerful sounds of Blackness. Also, we have some special guests in the house. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, State Senator Stephen Bradford, LA's beloved Councilwoman Heather Hutt, and many more. They're bringing their passion and leadership to the stage. Mark your calendars, August 12th, 2023, Leimert Park. Let's come together, support each other, and make a difference. Peace, love, and reparations benefit concert and unity rally. Be there or be left out. Produced by Tara Perry of Black Pact and Cam Howard of Reparations United.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on.
K-Drip. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, you are checking out RSVP on KBLA Talk 1580 with Jill Munroe. Now, before we get into tonight's show, if you want to check us out, you know you have to follow us on social media because we like to connect. KBLA 1580 everywhere. Me, I'm at Stiletto Jill. Make sure you hit the follow button. If you want to call in, if there's a topic that moves you, you have an opinion, please feel free to join the conversation, 820-920-1580. And if you have to run out in between, download the app and take us with you. You know that's the thing to do, and you can listen to all of the other shows anytime you like. You can also leave a message if you want to. It's all lit. Also, lastly, if you like YouTube, check us out live streaming on the chat. You can see all of our beautiful faces. You can jump in the chat. It's always going down in there. So make sure you connect with us on one of those avenues. Now, coming up, our first guest of the evening, as I mentioned, is Dr. Ayanna Davis. Dr. Davis is an LA Unified principal. She has been an administrator in the field of education for 25 years, and she's had 30 years experience. She is from LA, a native from Compton. Let me correct that. CPT. Let me not mess that up because the CPT is strong. Dr. Ayanna is from Compton, and she believes in giving back. She started her career off in early education with a project on developing education models for young boys, but she is here today. We're going to discuss the challenges that are facing Black women currently in education. You know, there's been changes. We've heard discussions around CRT, what is and isn't appropriate to be brought forth in schools, and the problem with some of these situations is that Black women deal with microaggressions that are not always readily seen when we're just looking on the surface. So we're going to have a conversation around that and sort of what she sees as areas not just of concern, but areas where we're improving and where there are things that we are shining that we're overlooked at. So welcome, Dr. Ayanna Davis, to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Into the
Thank you for having me here, and I just have to say, being in this setting gives me such warm and fuzzy feelings. When I was in middle school and high school, I was the voice in the morning. I would say, "Good morning, Curtis and Banning pilots. This is Ayanna Davis bringing you the news bulletin for today." So it just gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling in here.
So you're running it back. Okay. Shout out to all the Banning pilots. You know, Carson natives, stand up.
I want to know when she graduated. What year did you graduate?
Hey.
Can you write on? No, because it's a connection. Just write on a piece of paper for me. That's
okay.
All. That's all. It's a connection. It's a connection.
You know,
2013.
That's right. You know, somewhere mixed in there, you know, you went back, came forward, and got into education. So tell me first, what was your decision? What made you decide when you were coming up that I want to get into education?
I come from a family of educators, but I had intentions on going to law school. I went to USC, graduated in the political science department, specialized or had an area of focus of cultural diversity and law. And at that time, there was a big push to hire emergency credential teachers. So I applied, and that's how I got into teaching. Loved it, fell in love with specifically working with first graders and kindergartners, and then it moved me to really study the child development ages. And I landed my career in administration there. So how I'm marrying the two, the political science and the passion for education, is I felt a charge to speak out and stand up for myself, for one. Kind of like Monique, I was that person that was perceived to be the angry black principal when I saw things that were happening to myself or to other colleagues. And of course, some people, they feel afraid to stand out and stand up because it is often perceived to be aggressive and misunderstood. So that's how I landed there.
So, over your years working in education, specifically in this area, how have you seen things change as far as being a Black woman and stepping to education, and what the opportunities are for us, especially within Compton and Los Angeles, because the racial dynamic of the area has changed over the years?
So you're right. So in California, of course, we do see there has been a change with the demographics with students and with employees. Across the nation, Black women are still in the forefront of leadership positions. School leaderships, we're seeing an increase of superintendents of women, Black women. And what's happening, I'm learning, is that we're silent about some of the mistreatment that we're experiencing, especially in the higher education field. We're very attacked and unnoticed. It's almost acceptable. And we are now speaking up and speaking out and talking to one another. Years we felt isolated, and it was just embarrassing to admit that I'm suffering on the job, that I feel like I'm in a toxic work environment.
Can you give me some examples of the type of experiences or behaviors that, now you guys are coming together and sort of sharing with each other, comparing notes, so to speak, but maybe at one point in time women weren't as,
Here's an example. One sister friend of mine, a soror, dark-skinned, was in a state, Mississippi, and her being assertive, she's in a higher role, administrative role on a collegiate campus, and she's over student government, was over student government. So for her to give directives or even student discipline for misbehavior, let's say hazing, this is for an example, and she makes decisions that a student may need to be expelled for a semester because of, I believe, her demeanor, her being a Black woman, her being a large, for the most part, according to European standards, Black woman. She was perceived to be angry and aggressive, although she was being assertive, and she was making the students adhere to policy. So they never discussed the policy that the student broke or violated. It was that because of her tone, the student perceived that she was being attacked, although this student was in the wrong.
So as you have, seen these situations develop, you see the instances where there's a clear bias or an unfair treatment. What type of coping mechanisms or suggestions have you put together, or do you suggest, like, if a young mentor that you met through, some of your work or through your board position asks you how would they handle it, what type of advice do you give to them for those situations?
There is a thing that we talk about in our culture. I don't know if it's the same everywhere else, but coding.
Yeah.
And speaking the language, code switching, learning the tone, learning your demeanor. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to stage ourselves, have witnesses with us when we have these conversations with others, and prayer. And we have to stick together, and we have to know that it's not okay. And we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because we harbor so many, anxieties about this. I can speak for myself and have sleepless nights. Here's a good example. When you ask for a good example, colleagues of mine, we were at a retirement celebration, and we all have doctorate degrees, Black women, and our administrator was making a joke and said, hey, we call the Black doctors in this area Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, Dr. Lecter, like Hannibal Lecter, that's the serial killer. But to make a joke of us, mockery, and we're all professional Black women, who've gone through great extent to achieve and, become scholars. Like, I'm a California Distinguished Honor. I've never had less than a 3.9 degree. So to be ridiculed or mocked and compare me to Dr. Lecter, Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde as a joke, as a pun of a joke maybe, or maybe that was just really how he felt about us. So a lot of people get away with it because the people don't know what's happening to black women in education.
So when you mention coding sort of as a strategy, code switching, what type of responses do you get to that? Because there's one mind of thinking that I shouldn't have to shrink myself or change myself in any environment to make things easier, which of course we understand wanting to be authentic. But then there's the other mindset that it's strategy. It is a way to move through it. You take a position in anything and you move it around, and because change comes from within. You can't make any changes sort of if you're not involved. So how do you handle the conversations that may come up in regards to that?
So this is my hard truth. And there is a sister out there, Dr. Kimani, she has this big movement about leaving the toxic work environments. We may just have to create our own jobs. It's hard to say this, but if you're in the world and we have to play by those in Rome, we have to do what the Romans do. So either you have to survive and learn how to play by those rules and learn the cultural models or the cultural settings that's based upon us when we even get to these places, or we have to create our own workspaces.
I agree with that. So for you, okay, so that's level one. What are the other challenges that you feel are most sort of grabbing your attention as far as higher education and black women, that are things that they have to overcome or have changed sort of in the last 10 to 15 years as we've seen changes in society and in our government structure happen?
Okay, I'm not on the higher ed campus, but what I notice is that I do see a tendency that we're in places now where we are pulling one another up. You know, I do know several of my colleagues who are in K through 12 education and in higher ed. I believe they're looking out for one another and that they're reaching and pulling. And that to me is the most due diligence that we can do for one another, and not get in a place and space and say, hey, I made it, and now you figure out how to get there.
Right, just leave it behind. You got to leave a path. So you also mentioned the microaggressions that these women face. How does that in turn impact the students that they're teaching, especially the young girls? Does it have an impact? Do they recognize that? Because I'm sure if they're doing it with the teachers and the staff and the administrators, they're also trickling that down to the students. So how do you sort of balance that and help them, keep their self-esteem and worth?
So morale, I do think that motivation and having emotional stress severely impacts your job performance. Who can work in an environment where you know you're not valued? So you function, you manage every day, you do what you're supposed to do every day, but how passionate you are to come to work and how passionate one is to do her best job because she's already so beaten down or just sleepless nights or not feeling that she's healthy emotionally and mentally. I know, like as a school leader, how much am I able to give to my teachers with professional development? How much am I able to give them critical and strategic and timely feedback if I'm harboring ill feelings about me being on this job? It definitely impacts student achievement and student growth.
What is something that you are proud of or that you've seen change during your time in education from when you started to now?
I am noticing because over the years, the black student trajectory has always been that our students have been persistently falling behind, and this is nationwide. So I do notice that there are efforts and funding in place for black student achievement. I'm proud of that, and I do think that what's happening with this model, especially I see a lot of growth in Compton Unified, where I sit as the vice president of the board, in LA Unified. There have really poured in a lot of funding to support black students in as early as preschool. So I'm very proud of that. And I do know that we're changing the environments where it's culturally responsive, and we're making the environment where it's a safe place for students of color to navigate through I think that's what's working. I believe that's working.
We love to hear that. So I have a question for you as an educator. The other night we talked about on our show, there is an artist named Sexy Red, and her song is, you know, it's spicy, right? It's what it is. And so she went back to her old high school. She's 25, and it's summertime, so I'm not sure what was happening there, but some people were upset because she didn't perform, but the kids mobbed her. They were singing her lyrics. Like I said, they're spicy lyrics. What are your thoughts on those type of artists being, you know, during school functions, those type of things happening as a reward or as encouragement? Do you think that it is bad practice? Is there ever a time for it? What are kind of your thoughts around these new artists?
I think you bring parents in on this conversation. I believe these are conversations that you as parents and teachers and principals get together and say, hey, what are our boundaries? What are you accepting? Because, you know, if you're playing it at home, is it okay for us to play it in the school environment? I do know what kind of impact it does have on children, especially young girls. There was a time where, you know, the stripper popularity was at a heightened, you know, some years ago where we could play Sade on the yard and the girls were running to a pole and twirling on it as early as 3 years old. So
wow.
Parental discretion, and we must have the conversations as to what lyrics and what behaviors does impact student behavior. And once we have those conversations with parents and staff members together collaboratively, then we can decide what artist comes back and how they come back to present themselves to the school.
What happens in situations where there might be a contingent of parents that clearly the children are exposed to that, they're okay with it, and you shouldn't necessarily question it, and then the other parents are like, maybe not at this age, maybe not yet, that's not appropriate for my child? How do you sort of navigate that space?
So what I would do is, if we have the art, meaning playing the music or having the artist come to the school. Okay, so definitely I wouldn't play the music. I would not, because of the content. But I would have the artist could come back and maybe give the conversation on entrepreneurship or following your dreams or pursuing your passion, and how to, you know, navigate out of high school through, you know, whatever the career may be. We're talking about rap and music, so maybe the industry. I would make sure that both sides of the parents or groups of the parents are satisfied, but in the medium, it's about having the students connect with the artists. It's about associations, and they associate, and it's a related artist for the students.
Okay, when we come forward, I will have some more pop culture educational questions to talk with Dr. Ayanna Davis with. We're also going to touch on some of the hot and trending topics that we have out there. You are listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. Don't forget, if you want to call in, 800-920-1580. Hit up the socials, KBLA 1580. All that and more news and sports, yes, are coming up when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
Then this, no, grind. Boy, you know I grind. When I pull up this change your mind. Your mind. When I step on the scene, they can't wait to back it up.
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Daily record highs are being set from parts of the West into Texas as the heat dome continues expanding. And there seems to be no relief, with Phoenix, Arizona registering the warmest low temp ever recorded at 97 degrees at 4 in the morning. Phoenix also broke a 49-year record for consecutive days of at least 110 degrees. Meantime, the air quality is improving for millions as smoke from the wildfires burning in Canada are starting to move out of the north and southeast U.S. The White House says it's working for the release of a black U.S. soldier after he allegedly crossed into North Korea. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the Biden administration is actively working to make sure 23-year-old U.S. Army Private Travis King will safely return. And that's the latest. I'm Esther Dillard from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
At Southern California Edison, they're installing insulated power lines and using the latest technology to help keep our communities safe from wildfire. Learn more at sce.com/mitigation.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
In our community, mental health struggles can sometimes go unnoticed. The suicide rate among Black youth has risen faster than any other ethnic group. Only 1 in 3 African Americans who need mental health care receives it. African American women are only half as likely as their Caucasian counterparts to seek professional mental health services. Even those who guide us spiritually can sometimes face their own challenges. 45% of pastors say they've experienced depression or burnout to the extent they need to take a leave of absence from ministry. As people of faith, it's time to acknowledge it's okay not to be okay. You can pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources. Join us in raising mental health awareness in our community. Funded by the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health and the Champion Counseling Center of Faithful Central Bible Church.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
To my hometown, my community. Some of you have known me my whole life. Do you notice anything different about the kids in the neighborhood? Ever paid attention? You might start with gifts, money, attention. These are signs. Child trafficking is happening right here in this town. So don't just watch through the window. Pay attention. Because the more we know, the more we'll all know to say no. Learn the signs to look for and how to help at no-to-say-no.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Shout out to Andy for taking it back to, I think this is what, 88, 89? I know it's Moni and Moni Love. Moni in the middle. Where's she at? In the middle. Yeah, Moni in the middle. Okay. I feel you. The Native Tongues, that was what? Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, later leaders of the new school. I think we had that conversation a couple weeks ago. Shout out to that. Shout out to Angie, always keeping us hot up in here. So I think that's this video featured Moni in a classroom setting. So I see the connection. I see where you're going, Andy. You know, Andy keeps us lit in here. Yeah. So kind of on that topic, we see a lot as far as with social media. We see a lot of videos of students reacting badly to their teachers, to educators. Is that something that you see currently in school or that you've seen an increase of? And do you think that it's a thing of social media influencing that behavior, or is just that it's amplified because we now have social media to distribute it?
So interesting that you brought this up. So there's this TikTok challenge where students will have a fight, not to fight one another, but to gather the administration, and then they all jump on their administrations. So this is happening.
Wow.
And they're posting. So part of, because I sit in as one of the negotiators for our contracts for the Associated Administrators of Los Angeles, so right now we are asking for some contractual language that protects us when we are out on illness or when we've been victims of violence because of students' behavior, like they're fighting, we're breaking up fights, but you know the intention is not for us to break up the fight, it's for them to jump on us, on the administration. So this is happening. This is happening right here in LA on our middle school and high school campuses right now.
So what do you think? Obviously you mentioned that you are putting language or trying to get language put in to the contracts and situations like that, but are you, or do you feel that you are getting assistance from the parents in some of these junctures? Because I know that the parents can't be everywhere, and we all know, we remember we were kids, what would happen when kids would get with kids. And, you know, sometimes it's not just because they're bad kids, you know, peer pressure, they hype each other up, whatever. But do you think that it is the same regard from the parents now for their children's actions?
You know, I don't want to put, teachers versus administration, because I love teachers. I was a teacher once, but the community and parents, they oftentimes have a lot of compassion and empathy for teachers. What's happening is that school leaders, assistant principals, some coordinators on campuses, we're often not valued or protected. And because we appear to be administration, we're often told that comes with the job. That's the job you signed up for. And we get that from the district and also from parents. So, no, I do think that the community should, have a closer look and have more thought-provoking conversations regarding the safety and the treatment of school leaders.
So, okay. As things have transitioned, as you watched the development over the years in various positions and formats, right? We were talking earlier off air a little bit, and Trent brought this up about your early entry, what your dissertation was on and sort of the challenges you faced there. So Trent, I'm going to pass it to you because I thought that was a very interesting conversation, and it touched on the more things change, the more they stay the same, because there are still some of the same microaggressions that were happening then in sort of a different manner that have continued forward. So Trent.
What's a two-part question? What was your dissertation on? And did you face any challenges when you presented your dissertation to the board?
My dissertation was on the knowledge, skills, motivation, and organizational factors that teachers need to support Black boys in public preschools. I did not get any true pushback from my job, from my board. No, I did not get any of that. I did my dissertation through USC, so I was very supported through USC because the research was really good to see what's going on with Black boys in public preschools, because they were as early as 3 and 4 feeling isolated, ostracized, getting expelled, suspended. But what was heartbreaking for me is the data. When I was interviewing teachers and when I was doing data collection on their assessments, some of the descriptions that the teachers were calling 3-year-old students: a menace to society, future gangbanger, very disturbing behavior, hard-headed, just a bully at 3. So, I had to take all those notes and observe what was the trend. As early as 3 and 4 years old, these were the descriptors for Black boys.
Seeing that information and those descriptions, what do you do with that information as a Black woman, as a Black mother, an aunt, and you know firsthand what it is like interacting with with your nieces and nephews on the regular, and you know that it's completely opposite of what they're labeled. What do you do with that?
So, as a mother of a Black son, because I could not go in and directly, like these weren't my schools. They weren't my schools. I couldn't do the research at my school, so I couldn't go in and just say, hey, I needed to start teaching these teachers, because it came with biases, and people have implicit biases. The media, where the schools were located in the inner city and low-income areas, where we did see fathers who were affiliated in gang environments. So because we may have a father who appeared to be affiliated with a gang, the teachers may already automatically assume he's going to be a future gangbanger. You know what I mean? So these were teachers of color.
I was going to ask that. That was going to be my next question. Were these, because you said that it was inner city schools, so immediately I thought, are these our own, so to speak, or maybe, in solidarity POC, and we have the layers that can play into that, or were they others? But you answered it. So is that particularly heartbreaking for you when it is sometimes one of our own?
So yes, and what was most heartbreaking for me is that it was female women teachers, and the men teachers had different experiences, and they were diverse men who I interviewed, and they did not have the same experiences with boys because they were boys. So they knew, how to teach a boy.
And I can identify with that. I was a teacher in D.C. 2018, and my experience was completely different because as a man, I walk into the room, and number one, they don't see it that much. So they're automatically like, wait, what's going on here? And then 2, you kind of just command the attention of a room, and they really don't try it. So it's a completely different experience for sure.
Well,
definitely.
When we come forward, we're going to have more on that. We're also going to talk about another similarity between the two of you that I just realized. So all that and more, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, RSVP with Jill Munroe.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
The family of Keenan Anderson is suing the city of Los Angeles for $100 million. Maisha Cairo here with your K Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Keenan Anderson, a high school English teacher that was visiting Los Angeles from Washington, D.C., was tragically killed at the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department in January of this year. His family, alongside civil rights and personal injury attorney Benjamin Crump and Carl Douglas, have announced a $100 million lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. Crump and Douglas are representing Keenan Anderson's son, Sincere Anderson, and his mother, Gabrielle Hansel. The family is suing for civil rights violations, assault and battery, false imprisonment, and negligence on the part of the LAPD officers. The family of Keenan Anderson and attorneys Crump and Douglas want it to be known that this is only part of a systemic issue within the fabric of police departments everywhere. Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You are tapped back into RSVP with Jill Munroe right here on KBLA Talk 1580. We give you all the trending topics and hot headlines in entertainment, sports, culture, and lifestyle. I do have some breaking news before I go on with anything else. I want to let you know that the $1 billion Powerball jackpot, there is a winner.
Uh-oh.
One ticket has won in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Lord Jesus.
So,
Lord.
Check your tickets. Somebody in LA, one ticket has won the $1 billion Powerball.
It's me.
So that is what I said beforehand. I was like, it's me. I don't know. I just wanted to share that with everybody.
But wait. I'm looking to see what the numbers are because I'm gonna know if it's me.
Well, while you were looking up the numbers, I also wanted to share.
You know what? I had a lot of these numbers.
I made a connection between the two of you.
Oh, did you?
You were considering going to law school. That was your intention, right? At one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Trent, who spent time as an educator, also was considering going to law school.
Yes, that's true.
So, you know.
There's an interesting story behind that, too.
There's a lot of synergy happening in connections.
So. It is a lot of synergy and connection. I'll tell you off air, but it relates to why I asked you what year you graduated, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's nice. We like to share that. So,
yeah, she knew my cousin.
Hopefully, we're congratulating somebody in here, or
I hope so.
Hope it's me. Anyway, so we were talking about the microaggressions that are faced, some of the things that you deal with being a Black woman in education. We also talked about some of the successes. So, for you at this current time, what are sort of the things that you would like to see implemented within your scope of reach?
That's a good one. Right now, I am so focused on work environment and safety, mental health, self-care, and wellness for those individuals who are providing instruction and care for students. We cannot keep functioning in environments where our our employees are getting sick on the job, dying in the office of heart attacks, cancer, stroke by the age of 40. So I really am into right now how to make sure that the school leadership position is protected, valued, respected, and that we are, collaboratively working together to make sure we're staying healthy emotionally and mentally and physically.
Okay. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of in, not wrapping up, but in winding down. So, what for you has been your most crowning achievement in education?
Let's see. For me to get past that dissertation, for me to earn the doctorate degree, that was, and let me tell you a quick story. So when I attended USC undergrad, I had that imposter syndrome. I really felt like I didn't belong there. So I didn't shine. And I was used to being, a person that was involved with student leadership and student government and, from elementary school through high school. So I kind of shrunk down in USC. So when that second time around, when I got my doctorate, I was back with a vengeance. So I got involved in everything that supported doctoral students. I was an ambassador for the program. It was my comeback, So that was an achievement for me to know that I belonged and that I was able, capable, and I thrived in that setting. And secondly, I think one of the most important thing is that I believe with my maturity and now that I'm not a novice administrator, to be a mentor. I think mentorship is underrated.
Absolutely.
And pulling other novice, administrators up or teachers who are trying to sit in the seat that I've been in, that's most rewarding for me right now.
Absolutely. Amazing. So you have to tell us where we can find you at on social media so we can see more of these intriguing conversations and just see what you're doing.
You can follow me on Instagram at I am Ayanna Davis. Okay. LinkedIn, Ayanna Davis, Dr. Ayanna Davis.
So before we let you go, were you about to say something? Okay. Before we let you go, I did want to ask you something else. So social media, we talked a little bit about it as far as students. How big of a distraction is it, not just for the students, but for the administration at this point? Because a lot of them are entering education. They might be younger. They've grown up with it. So do you find that both ways it's sort of maybe in different aspects, but that it is an issue on both sides?
I can speak for some information I just learned over the past weekend when I attended a conference with CAPSE, the California Association of Black School Educators. It was a de-education of black girls. So what I've learned is how social media is adversely impacting black girls' imagery and body shaming, adultification of the black girls, and how this phenomenon of wanting to alter how they look and how they feel about their appearance is overwhelming and is really impacting their student achievement, their socialization, their esteem, and their self-awareness. It was sad. It was heartbreaking for me.
And so do you think that, given that example, right, of how deeply it's touching, do you think it extends to adults in some ways as well, unfortunately?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think that we're getting caught up. I do.
So last question before I let you go. As an educator, right, do you think, is the phone one of the biggest barriers to attention span, like good education? Like, I think about, we had distractions, we had some things, but not like this. And so I would imagine, I've seen how some kids can get if you try and put them on punishment or take away their phone. So what I would imagine, being in an educational environment, that heightens even though they know that it's not really a place for it.
So of course, you put out the norms of the classroom and, here's the rules of engagement. But some innovative teachers have figured out a way, like, okay, I can't fight the phone, I'm just going to join the phone. So, you can play games, educational games. They can actually do surveys through their phones in the classroom. So if you can use the phone as a tool of engagement and instruction, that's the win right there. It's to fight it, you just want to join it and make sure that they're utilizing it and leveraging the technology in every way. And that could be a way to keep the student maybe on the phone, because now it's comforting just to have it there,
right.
But they're engaged in classroom instruction.
And that's innovation, and that's the type of teachers that we need, that will take things that are meant to hurt us, to be deficits, and turn it around and use it to spread that message and broaden our students. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Ayanna Davis, for joining us. I love the conversation. When we come forward in a bit, I'm just getting you guys ready. Just getting you ready. Andy always gets panicked when I say that too soon. I'm just getting you ready for what's coming up in the next hour. We're going to talk Carlee Russell and what happened with that case a little bit. We're going to get into some I Told You shows, because we mentioned last night that there might have been some inconsistencies as far as her case has gone. And now, obviously, it's opened up. And the concern, is it going to impact the next person of color that is going through a situation? They say it won't, but will it? We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about John Amos and what is happening with the alleged elder abuse and the terroristic threats and arrests that are going down with all of that. We're also going to talk about what happened with Issa Rae. She may have been throwing a little shade in an interview at one of the most popular female rappers right now. We're going to let you decide and discuss that. We're also going to get into Shannon Sharpe and potentially what his next destination might be. We aren't sure, but there were some hints that were dropped online. And we're going to get you ready for the Late Late Show, the Late Stop, with these Tubi reviews. And what I will say about that is that I have to question some of your recommendations. I still want them. Still send them to me. But we're going to talk about quality. We're going to talk about what you consider watchable. We're going to talk about what makes something good, what makes something okay, and what makes something just kind of worthy to pass the time around. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, Trent, what have you been keeping it real about today?
Wow. You know what? Let's see. What have I been keeping it real about today? You know what? It's interesting. There was a lot. Yeah, I had to replay my day. Back there was a few things. I started off very early, completely rogue, hot and heavy. I just walked into somebody's office at first thing in this morning, no coffee, and I said, "Look, you can't trust everybody that you're talking to." And they might come with, a carrot on a string. You can't, don't eat the carrot, walk away, do what you got to do. And just walked out and left.
So Spirit led you to walk into someone's office this morning and give that message.
First thing, no coffee.
All right.
Hot and heavy, locked and loaded, walked in, walked out, and scrambled the man's day in his office and left. Went back to my office and said, "Hey, this is how we're starting it off."
All right.
Pow, pow, bang, bang, baby.
Pow, pow, bang, bang. When we come forward, we'll get into all of that. Thank you, Dr. Ayanna Davis, for joining us. Tell us one more time where they can find you at on social media.
I am Ayanna Davis on IG.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to follow you on IG.
News and traffic are up next when we come forward. All that and more. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
My mother dead, she told me, go for what you know, Mo. Yo, Moni in the middle. In the middle, yeah. Moni's in the middle. In the middle, Moni in the middle. In the middle, yeah. Moni in the middle. Moni in the middle. In the middle, yeah. Moni in the middle. In the middle, Moni in the middle. In the middle, yeah.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Daily record highs are